Hot take. Expedition 33 didn't win enough awards in the 2025 show. In addition to Best Indie Game, Best Score, Narrative, Direction, Voice Actors, etc., it should have taken Best Multiplayer, Best Adaptation, Best Ongoing, Player's Choice. Seriously guys, this is why players only get 10% of the vote. Best Mobile. Actually, no, wait. Maybe not Best Mobile Game. The Horse Girl game deserves that one. That series is truly amazing. Hi. Yes, I am a weeb. But I am also a gamer. And 2025 was a pretty good year for gaming. Now, whether you liked this particular award show, hated it, or just don't care, doesn't really matter. You just enjoy it for what it is. It's a reason to look back at all the cool games you played that year, and look forward to the many more to come out in the future. Personally, I thought the show was fine. It was a good mixed bag of new reveals and minor upsets.
Welcome to Highguard.
Also Evanescence. That was pretty cool. But now, I want to shout out some of the games I played this last year. And since I'm lazy, I figured throwing everything into one giant video is a far more efficient way to share my thoughts. Especially considering I meant to get this video out last month. So, no awards, but I have split everything up into its own category. Some will be quick shoutouts, honorable mentions, others will be mini videos in itself. Alright, here are the cats, as in categories. Feel free to skip around to any you may or may not be interested in. Let's kick things off with the game I keep ignoring that haunts me for my ever-expanding Steam backlog. Cyberpunk 2077. Will I finally play this game in 2026? Maybe. Okay, best racing game. Sonic Crossworlds. But only because I don't own a Switch, then it might be Kirby. I don't know. If you want my opinions on Crossworlds, check out my last video. Shameless plug. But for an arcade racer, there's kind of a lot to do. Kept me interested. Not much else to say anymore. If you couldn't tell, these are mostly joke categories, so we're gonna end it with one more. Next up, most time spent. My own. Okay, I'm just kidding. But did you know I'm technically a game developer? Shut up, let me have this. And maybe check out my second channel where I upload monthly devlogs of my latest project. And maybe some other asset stuff too. I don't know, I just started it, I'll figure it out. But I would really appreciate you checking it out if you have the time or the interest. Anyway, this joke section is over. In other words, it's the best 6 to 7 out of 10 game I played this year. And I think it has to go to Borderlands 4. Almost entirely because it's a co-op RPG that is much more fun playing with friends, and I expected the new story and characters to not really impress me in the slightest. And when I finished the main story, yeah, that's basically what happened. At least it was better than 3? Not a super high bar, but you know. Once again, the gunplay is solid, so that's good, and I'm looking forward to the DLC, I guess. But, like, is the game amazing? No. Is it bad? Also no. It's fine. On the far side of that spectrum, we have most disappointing. Okay. You have no idea how much this one hurts me. It's Little Nightmares 3. The second game is among my top 10 games of all time, as hard as that may be to believe. So when I heard 3 was happening under a different studio, well, Tarsier went and made their own version of I Can't Believe This Isn't Still Just Little Nightmares. This one tried its damnedest to still stand out. And I respect that. I listened to the podcast, which was actually pretty good, waited patiently as I tempered my expectations. And yet, I still pre-ordered the game, because damn it, I love this series. And it was about what I expected, which is kind of the problem. As a puzzle platformer game set in the Little Nightmares universe, it's fine. It might have even taken the last category. It would even be a good game if it wasn't directly connected to the previous 2. Everything is just a considerable step down from the last 2 games. And it doesn't do enough in the little runtime that these games tend to have. Out of the 5 pretty short levels, 2 were good, 1 I did not care for at all, and the other ones were just kind of forgettable. The monsters don't live up to the previous ones, let alone top them, and the story is nothing if not predictable. It constantly reminded me how much better the other 2 games were, with not so subtle references and skins, none of which are unlockable for some reason. Like, you had to have pre-ordered the game or download the pack, I assume, that they made for free at some point. But, like, 2's hat collectible system was absolutely perfect, and I don't know why you would throw that away just for, like, 1 microtransaction. By the end of the story, I was just like, oh yeah, I kind of figured that was the case. But also, no 6? But no, like, I thought that's what we were building towards for half of the game. Like, you'd encounter her, and she would either be an obstacle you had to overcome again, or join you and help you get to where you were trying to get to. But no, we just don't do anything with that. I need that redemption. She needs that redemption. Everyone still hates her after the end of 2 when she was totally justified. I mean, Mono 2, don't get me wrong, that guy is my goat, but his story is also kind of done. It's not in a satisfying way, but his story is a closed loop. But 6 is fair game. So to not have her be present in the story in any capacity, like not even as a looming potential threat, I think is a huge missed opportunity. Most anticipated. This is going to be an easy toss-up between Control 2, Resonant, and Reanimal. For all the reasons I basically just listed, it looks awesome. The devs clearly know what they're doing, considering this is just like their previous 2 games, and I can't wait to play it. The issue being that by the time I get this video out, it is a very, very real possibility that it will have already released, and I will have already played it. So, with that being said, let's just acknowledge that it's here, and that it's awesome, and move on to the second one. Control Resonant was the coolest thing that came out of the Game Awards for me personally. And until its reveal, I obviously had no idea it existed. But I was immediately excited and immediately realized within like the first 10 seconds of the trailer of what it was. Remedy games do not miss for me. Now, if only Quantum Break would get the sequel it truly deserves. If it's remotely like the first Control, but with a more melee-style combat and some of that sweet, sweet new psychological level design, I am sold. Best music. It's Claire Obscure. Like, this isn't even a contest. I put some of those songs up there with the Nier OST, and I love the Nier OST. Another shameless plug. It's just the kind of good and depressing vibes I crave that just also happen to be French in this case. But there is a runner-up, so long as we can count DLC. Lies of P was the game I loved to hate. It was my first Souls-like, if you can believe that. Blasphemy from the FromSoft community, I know. But are FromSoft games BioShock Pinocchio? I don't think so, and I can't not play BioShock Pinocchio, whether it's my first Souls-like or not. Lies was great when I played it. Solid 8 out of 10 game. I loved hating it, and my sanity, in turn, hated me for playing it, because I was absolute garbage at it. Every single thing in this game exists solely to kill you, in increasingly infuriating ways.
That's bait.
Even the small enemies have cheap gimmicks that will destroy you at some point, and bosses took me anywhere from 10 to 15 attempts to beat, only for me to then discover a second phase. Marvelous. But I did clear it, eventually. And then the DLC dropped. Right from the start, this DLC pulls no punches. Small encounters are brutal and only ramp up. They even added an easy mode, knowing full well these fights could be maddening. However, by this point in the game, you know all the tricks. You trust no environment. Any chest out in the open, way too good to be true. Learn all the enemy patterns. Buy a metric fuck ton of throwables and spam bosses with them. They have cheap tricks? Bitch, so do I. I'll even pull up to a boss fight with a homie. I don't give a damn. But obviously, there are upsides as well. A tighter story with cool lore that was only hinted at in the base game. Even more amazing music. The saddest tree in video game history. New abilities and epic weapons. Mostly the gunblade, which I love. And possibly the coolest and most insane final boss I think I've ever seen in a video game. And I only had to lower the difficulty once. All of this bumped the game up to a 9 out of 10 for me. There's a reason it's called Lies of Peak. And I can't wait to see what these developers cook up next. Of course, if we are solely talking about a full new game that released in 2025 that I consider to be the best of the best, Expedition 33 is the only choice. If I had played Hades 2 or Silksong, then I almost guarantee it would still be the same result. Don't get me wrong, I really love the Hollow Knight art style, and what the devs did for that game. But I'm not a fan of Metroidvanias, so I never finished the first one. I do think that had Expedition 33 not qualified as an indie game, it should have won. But by definition, and some gray area stuff, it does. Okay, so maybe matching this particular indie game up against any other is like pitting a nuclear warhead against a hand grenade. Indie or not though, E33 is ridiculously solid. Writing and voice acting especially. I really loved 90% of that story, and the last 10% was still at least pretty good. I already mentioned the music, but this game pulled off a feat I've rarely encountered. It made me enjoy turn-based combat. Like, what? And it's not just because they threw in dodging and parrying. It just flows really well. On top of that, you can explore the game's gorgeous environments and challenge fun fights and platforming minigames. There were times I thought parts of the game were straight up unfair, and times where I absolutely steamrolled certain fights with my burn damage over time build. If you haven't played it, or are one of the few people who are just hating on it because it swept all the attention from the games you felt are more deserving, give it a shot. It's not perfect, no game is. I personally think it drags a little bit in the third act, and the ending is a little near-coded if you ask me. I don't love the drastic shift in difficulty for some of the in-game bosses, or the heavy bias they put on using specific characters. Like, what do you mean I can't make CL the most overpowered character on my team? But everything else is executed so well, it's not really an issue. Now, if you play it and don't like it, that's fine. Doesn't mean it's bad, or that you need to hate on it. It's just not your cup of tea. Or whatever they drink in France with their baguettes. One thing is certain though, E33 should be the standard for a complete game that all other developers strive for, indie and AAA alike. And if other studios and developers want to even approach the extraordinary feat that this game pulled off, they're gonna need to step it up. Alright, that's all I got. Thanks for watching.